Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, hang on. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me have attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, take out people power. We're going to get right back into that. I'm actually going to show that and walk you through it with my personal insights of what it's like to be in the Soviet Union or Eastern Europe during the time of the communists. Not much fun. I was there, I can tell you. Hang on just a sec, okay? I will be able to tell you what was going on there, and I'll be able to walk you through that because there's a lot of very important stuff going on and relating to these things, okay? If you haven't turned it in already, I will come around and collect your presidential election predictions, your extra credit opportunity. Let me get that from you. If you don't have it ready to turn in at this moment, you can bring it to me at the end of the day, and that will be fine. I'll be up late watching the results come in. Oh, stapled. Oh, you did. Oh, you printed it out. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Because it's not just the presidential election that is being decided in today's election. My brother's on the ballot. Okay, great. Shh. Shh.
Everyone voted, brother.
Shh. My brother's on the Ada County Highway District. There's 5 different districts. The one that he represents is over in the eastern part of Ada County, so I think you guys live in that area. But he's on the ballot. I'm his treasurer, so we'll see how that turns out as well tonight. Quick question.
What is his political affiliation?
Good question. For those races, you don't advertise yourself as a Republican or Democrat. Okay? When he was in the legislature, when he ran for Congress for my dad's old seat, he, unlike my dad, my brother ran as a Democrat. My dad ran as a Republican. So, does that give you any clues? Mr. Hanson, he ran as an independent. Oh, well. Yes?
What would happen if, like, for example, someone's vote doesn't get in and it would affect the outcome?
Here's a question. Depends on the state. In the state of Idaho, you need to have your vote arrive by today. That's why the last time to mail in your, like if you did an absentee ballot, you requested the ballot, you would have to have mailed it in already. Some people showed up for early voting. That was done, because my son did that. That was like on Friday, I think was the last day for early voting. Depends on the state. Some states, if you postmark it by election day, then it still counts, even if it arrives like 2 or 3 days later. It depends on the laws of the state. And we've got 50 different states, so it could vary quite a bit. So I can't give you a real crystal clear answer, except to say if presidential election is very close today, we may have to wait for a day or 2 or 3 to find out, like, for example, Pennsylvania. If you have your ballot turned in today, mailed in today, they'll still count it when it arrives, delivered by the Postal Service 2 or 3 days from now. Okay? My Uncle Reed, right there, he lost a close election by 5 votes. We called for a recount, and they did do the recount. And they took all of the cards and so forth that people had voted on and put them in the machine. There were some changes. There was a change of 1 vote in 1 precinct, a change in another precinct by another vote. After they recounted all the ballots for all the precincts, and there were like 15, 20 precincts altogether, he still lost by 5 votes. So there is that possibility. In the year 2000, the presidential election between George W. Bush and Al Gore the Democrat, Bush the Republican, it came down to Florida. Big state, swing state. It was so close in Florida they had to recount the ballots and so forth, and that took several weeks. But then ultimately, after they had done that, the Supreme Court looked and said, okay, you've done your recount. What's the latest result? Oh, Bush wins. Okay, so Bush becomes the president. So that's a good question. Keep an eye on that. It gets kind of crazy, and I would say this year, with all the things we've experienced in 2020, yeah, hopefully it'll be as calm as possible. Quick question.
So, Is it mainly Pennsylvania that will decide the outcome of this election?
Good question. I've been just watching it. I would say when you're watching tonight, and you know this, if you've taken the time to do the predictions, you know Pennsylvania's close, Florida's close, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Ohio. There's a number of them are close. Honestly, if it gets down to like Texas, if Trump doesn't win Texas, he's probably already lost the election on the basis of other states that have not gone his way. If Biden can't win Minnesota, which Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago, he's probably already lost the election too. So, but it's an interesting question. Watch the swing states. You guys know which they are. In fact, or I'll show you this. This was sort of the composite. They basically said, okay, the states that are too close to call, we'll just like put it light blue. Biden's going to win Arizona because he's leading in the polls there. Or light pink, we'll say Trump wins Texas because of that and so forth, right? Because somebody's going to win in each of the different states. This would have Biden as the winner, but that's just on the basis of polls. Some people are like, no, the polls are not going to be as accurate as people might think they are. We'll find out. Question?
So I was like watching, like thinking to myself. So I was watching this ad on Joe Biden on president, and he talked about how he wanted to make like the military richer because he loves them so much. Does that mean that he'd have to raise taxes? Yeah.
When we look at how things work in government, I don't want to handle all these questions right now because frankly, of my 4 government classes, you guys ask good questions, but we're a little bit behind compared to the other ones. So I'm not going to handle all of them right now. If you want to raise taxes or raise spending or any kind of thing like that, you don't just like wave your hand as the President of the United States. We'll get into that in our next unit. There's a thing called Congress. They're also elected. So you have to have important things go through Congress and the president. So like the last time a Democrat was elected as president, Obama, there was a bunch of Democrats elected to the House of Representatives in Congress and the Senate in Congress. And there were changes in the health care system. Some of you guys heard it referred to as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. That received votes within Congress and the president signed it. So if a person wants to do something, that's great. But they need other people to go along with it, and that gets a little bit more complicated. Okay, quick question.
So, excluding all the swing states, just like the hardcore ones, like let's say Idaho and California or whatever, who would win?
If you didn't have any of the swing states, that's why the swing states are important.
No, listen. So excluding the swing state results, like okay, so how they like really haven't, we can't predict them now. Just excluding them, who would win between this like California and Idaho and stuff?
To win, you have to have 270. Neither Biden or Trump can win without winning a bunch of the swing states. There's your answer.
But who's like dominating their vote?
Oh, I think probably Biden because Biden's got like, Biden's got like New York and California. That's a big lead. So, I mean, oh my gosh, you guys. I mean, they're good questions, but take a look here. Look at the dark blue, right? That's Biden's starting point, like 183. Those are solid Democrat predictions. The solid Republican ones only add up to 77, right? And the biggest one in there is maybe like, Tennessee with 11. If you look at the biggest ones for Biden, it's like 29 for New York, 20 for Illinois, 55 for California. Okay, so that's a big head start there. Yes?
So even though like Trump has most of the states towards him, it really matters if you can get the bigger states.
It helps in the way we've got the system set up to do well in big states. That's why states like Florida with 29 electoral votes, Texas with 38 electoral votes are very, very important. The smaller ones don't make as much of a difference except if it's a very close race. If it's a very close race, you need... So, for example, when Bush beat Gore because he got Florida, Al Gore was from Tennessee. He lost his own state. If he had won his own state, granted it's kind of a Republican state, but if he had won his own state, he would have been the president even though, that his own state is, only 11 on that count. Okay? All right, let's get to it. Okay? So, again, if you don't have yours turned in, it's up to you to make sure you turn it in to me before the end of the day. The students who were here yesterday, I told them if they got that into me email by 3 o'clock, that'll be good. I'll start watching this evening to see how it all plays out, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. Yeah. Hang on to those.
Well, no, are we on the same?
Yep, 1989 People Power. Okay? 1989 People Power. So 1989 People Power, we have this top line, the West, United States, stronger economy, better growth, able to pay for more things like in the military on the basis of the government doesn't own your businesses, but your successful businesses pay taxes, and those taxes help to pay for the United States military. Right here, the lower line with less growth is the Soviet Union. Their communist economic system, the government controls everything, doesn't seem to produce as much growth, does it? So they're not going to be able to keep up with the United States. They're in quite a bit of a pickle. But their solution, as we will see, under the last leader, Gorbachev, right here, you see Gorby? He's the last Soviet leader during the Cold War. And he will start to institute things in his country that are going to lead to some really, really interesting results. And we'll see that today. What kinds of things? Well, he's going to introduce capitalism into his country. Whoa, that's a first. And following the model of the United States, he's like, well, let's have democracy too. Oh my gosh. Democracy in a country that had really never hardly ever had democracy before. Oh, and also free speech. He's going to allow people to speak freely. You'll even learn the Russian word for free speech. It's glasnost. It's in your handout. You'll see that. Okay? Are you ready for this? Quickly. It's not bloody. That's a birthmark. It's a birthmark. Yep, it's a birthmark. It's a birthmark. It's a birthmark. My gosh, you guys. All right, here we go. So, where we left off, we have an explanation. Let me see, what question was this? Oh my gosh. Aren't you with us? Yes, we did. Yes. You were so into your Karen outfit, you didn't really pay attention to the questions. You did finish question 6. Wonderful. Okay. Yes, we finished question 6. What was the answer? Who's in charge of your life occupation? The state. The state would go, you good runner. That is what you do. You going to be runner for the state of communist Soviet Socialist Republic. You run. You're like, that's not too bad because they treat runners, they treat the athletes pretty well. You are going to work in, yeah. So the party's in charge of all that. But are they going to have, let's see. Yeah, we didn't get too far on that one. Are they going to have really, really good stores? I went to the Soviet Union in 1985 after I finished college. I went into their stores. They didn't really have much available for people to purchase. Because what was their top priority in their economy? Making consumer items available to people? No. Military, science. That was number one. And so that's where the money went into. For national security. Although, it ultimately isn't going to work out.
And by the 1970s, the central planners were attempting to produce everything a modern consumer might demand.
You'll feel like you're in Alice in Wonderland. Notice they don't have the camera look at the shelves because the shelves didn't have much.
Ausdauernd und robust. Ihr zuverlässiger Begleiter, der neue Trabant 601.
As a skilled worker in one of Czechoslovakia's biggest factories, Peter Miller's standard of living was rising.
Já jsem teda měl si možnost koupit auto, měl jsem možnost nějaký karty. I knew that they had Mercedes in the West. Zahraničí je to auto Mercedes, je to krásné, to nekrásné. Yes, it's a great car. But they're both cars.
Yeah, but some don't break down as much.
control
Number 7.
of newspapers and television meant people heard only the good news, the propaganda of success.
So did you get the bad news? Nope. Oh, no. Things are going great. The harvest is increasing by 75%.
People need other decisions when they tell you somewhere else. The party newspaper tells you what they think. All we can do is chat over a beer.
Let me give you the handout.
Far more interested in sport.
It was a world of mass illusion, in which the individual was part of the whole, and the whole part of the individual.
Sorry. Megan, do you have questions for the first ones? You what? Do you want to borrow a sheet so you can write down the answers? Who's more important, the individual or the whole? The whole.
I remember how terrified we were to get it right, not to put up the wrong card, because Ceausescu was there in front of us. And for him, everything has to be perfect.
When Romania's President Ceausescu was
You got number 8? How did he feel?
knew that this
Terrified.
had little to do with real life.
Wait, that's number 9.
Yeah, sorry, number 9, yeah.
The truth is that the shops didn't even have 1/100th of what we used to see on TV.
Yes.
There was little food. No meat, butter, milk, no cheese.
Across the Soviet bloc, communist economic planning wasn't delivering. Standing in line became a way of life.
If you want to get food or any kind of thing that's valuable but not very well available, you had to stand in line. Or your grandparents had to stand in line all night if you wanted to get that food. Because if you went there just on your own convenience, the shelves would be bare. I know this feeling. When I went to the Soviet Union, and we were hanging out with our friends there, where like all of a sudden a line was formed. It's like you don't even think, you get into line, because whatever is at the end of the line is going to be gone by the time you get into the line if you get into the line too late. Do you understand? We didn't even know what was in the line. Turned out it was ice cream. That was good. Okay? So, I mean, and we were able to get some of the ice cream before it ran out. But, I mean, that's like crazy. It was good. It was cold. It was sweet. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. Back off. Gosh. All right, so number 11. How long do you have to actually wait? It's coming up. You shouldn't have like developers going, I think I'll build a bunch of like apartment buildings and see if I can rent them out. No, who's in charge of building apartment buildings? The government. Is it their top priority? Not always. What do you suppose the answer is to number 11? It's coming up.
Probably a lot of years.
It is a lot of years. Could I have a number?
60.
15.
Oh,
Jenks, you owe me a Coke.
I can't believe it. 15.
Wow. Who's going to win today's election?
I'm looking at it right now.
I know. I know. You have to wait. Shh.
My good fortune was that my grandparents were still alive. I remember my grandpa was the shop, where he would sit all night until the shop opened the next morning.
Since then, we'll get the other ones for you.
That was when the Romanian proverb was coined: if you don't have a granny, you better buy one.
People spent up to 5 hours a day in line.
Wow.
The wait for an apartment was 15 years. But the party still tried to persuade them that life was far worse in the capitalist world.
Yeah. They looked at a movie that was made in America based on Charles Dickens' story about the industrial inequalities in the 1800s. Do you know this musical? Oliver.
Oh!
Based on Oliver Twist.
How could I not know
It's okay.
On the screen.
You just don't know your musicals, I guess.
No, I haven't
I
heard.
cried.
I have 90 musicals, I still.
What a nightmare his life was.
It was the best picture back in the 60s.
And lived like that in the West.
Poor little Oliver, the orphan. He wants some more food.
In the East, they were told that the Iron Curtain
13.
continent was there to protect
It was there to protect you.
influence of the West. But
13.
by the late 1970s, barbed wire and dogs could no longer shield them from the anarchic din of Western
No, the barbed wire was there to keep you in.
I got to know Western music, though I didn't understand a word. I imagine these people dancing and smiling. You couldn't hide the freedom in that music. Anything from the West. Records, soap, clothing.
Ooh, let's see if you can guess this one. This is coming up, number 14, because when my group went over, college students and so forth, we were approached by different people. They're like, oh, can you sell this? Can you sell this? Can you sell this? I'm like, I actually didn't bring these things over. I think maybe one or two of the group did. What would be a very Western article of clothing? Some of you guys are wearing them today, I think, perhaps. Maybe. What kind? Blue jeans. Write it down. Blue jeans. Back in those days, old, worn-out blue jeans were not valued very much by American consumers, and so they would sell those off, and some of them made their way into the Soviet Union. Now you guys buy jeans that are all ripped and torn and torn apart because it's fashion, right? Plus it gives a little bit of like, yeah, I'm not criticizing your fashion. If you want to wear like things that the older generation would go, you need to fix that, you know, I need to put a patch on it. When I was a kid, when I get like torn knee, things like that, my mom would put patches on there, okay? That's, nowadays you're like, that's how you buy it. Anyway, blue jeans, very, very poor. People would pay 2 months' salary to get a pair of blue jeans.
Became a prized item.
It's very Western style.
I wanted blue jeans. I've seen them on someone. 2 months salary. Amazing stuff.
Oh, let's see if you can
But occasionally,
get this
these
Beatles
stores
tune.
to cater to the taste of a new generation.
What is this Beatles tune? Shout it out as soon as you know it. Nope, it's not Hey Jude. Do you know it? You got it right. Yeah, Let It Be. You should have shouted it out. Don't be shy. Bujista. Let It Be. Bujista.
But whatever people might want and think, it was dangerous to speak up.
What?
The state's tentacles reached into every area of life. Telephones were bugged.
Telephones are bugged?
Rooms were filmed.
Hotel rooms are filmed? Are you kidding me? This was really freaky. When we went to the Soviet Union, we had to stay in specific hotels that were set aside for tourists from the West. We knew that those rooms were bugged. We knew that there were people listening in, KGB, listening in on our conversations. And we were going to be getting together with some friends and so forth outside. We didn't want them to get into trouble, so we knew not to say the names of those people. And so we were all nervous. I remember our first night in Moscow. We were like nervous, and we were like telling KGB jokes. I'll make KGB jokes. We were like, ha, 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 ha. And all of a sudden, someone's at the door. They want to come in. And we're like, oh no, we're in trouble. It was some of the hotel staff. They were like checking to see if we had Michael Jackson music and so forth that they could like trade and get and so forth. They listened in. They did that. Yes.
How come you just didn't speak English because they so Russian?
They know how to, the KGB agents know how to speak English. They're smart. If they're going to find out what Americans are saying, granted tourists, and we were there, you know, and they're like, yeah, come and spend your American money on our stuff and so forth. But yeah, they knew English.
Wait, were they actually like filmed with cameras or just like audio?
Both.
Well,
Both.
what if
Both.
there was, like, some
One of the hotels that I stayed in on that trip, now has a museum in the upper stairs of that hotel where the KGB had their apparatus that they were listening in on all the things. It's a historical thing. You could go back up there, and I could see like the devices and so forth they used to listen in. Mostly it was listening in. Mostly it was listening in. Yes? Yes, yes, because we had a real strong economy, and our money was worth real value. And so we actually could go to, they had some stores set aside just for the Westerners to sell stuff that even Soviet citizens couldn't actually go in and buy things from. Totally unfair. But they wanted our real valuable American currency. Yeah. This is Soviet Union. You don't bring lawsuits against Communist Party. No. No. It's they're in charge. If it would happen in our country, because we're a free society, yeah, you could. Of course you could in this country. Yeah, I mean, you could, but you could bring it into court and then that would be deliberated. In Soviet Union, no. We send you to camp. You break rocks.
Idle talk could lead to arrest on the street.
Oh.
Though the worst days of the Stalinist terror were over,
17.
fear, not ideology, still kept people in check. The secret police held millions of files on ordinary citizens.
Secret police.
Information supplied by a huge network of paid informers.
Maybe they had one of me. Who cares?
I travel by train a lot. People were always grumbling about Ceausescu living conditions. But I preferred to stand in the corridor or pretend that I was sleeping.
Would you complain about the government to a perfect stranger? Maybe that stranger works for the government.
Why should I take a risk?
Yeah,
Nobody knew who might be an informer.
exactly. Number 18. Number 18.
One of those informers was Dietmar Passenheim.
Dietmar Passenheim.
Who controlled the East German railways for the police.
He wants to have a conversation with you.
I was going to the platform before the train rolled in. I just looked around to see what sort of people were boarding the train, and I figured out who to go and sit with.
Who is the person that's going to say something critical about the communist?
In our training, we've been taught how to recognize people.
Who are decadent youth?
The decadent citizens were often young.
Wearing what?
Jeans.
There you go. Blue jeans. Of course they're wearing clothes. Blue jeans.
Every Westerner had to be watched. He was an enemy, and we had to fight him.
Have you ever had that experience where you were watched by people?
Police training film
Yeah.
showed how to spot the danger signs when a young person grew infatuated with the West.
Disco. That's a definite sign of infatuation with the West in the 70s. Look, it's eroding her ideological foundations.
In my
Disco.
view, Natasha Kuznetsova was drawn to anything and anyone Western. There was only one disco in Moscow. We went to La Dios.
Number 19.
Could only go with a foreigner.
You can only go with a Westerner, a foreigner,
She got herself into trouble. When they got there,
so they could make some money.
they forced me to sign a document admitting to the role they wanted to give me, a hard currency prostitute.
They charged her with a crime and made her confess to that
The
crime.
penalties were high for people who challenged the system.
Number 20.
When the young Berliner Mike Frommel distributed dissident leaflets, he ended up in a secret police prison.
Wow. For handing out pieces of paper, he could go to prison.
They knew more than I thought. They showed me photographs.
Wow.
They photographed me in secret. It was unbelievable. For the first 7 months, I was in solitary.
He was in solitary confinement for 7 months as part of his prison sentence.
Dredged up your deepest secrets.
Wow.
There was nothing left of you. Nothing.
No wonder he was so happy the wall came down. Wow.
In Poland, the opposition to Soviet domination and the socialist idea was more widespread and deeply rooted than anywhere else. People still clung to another set of beliefs.
What would those beliefs be? Oh, look who that is. This is, I believe, what, number 21? This is the Pope. And for the first time in, I think, history, the Catholic cardinals had chosen a Polish priest. And he became John Paul II. And he came to Poland, and he gave a mass, and he spoke, and he did prayers, and so forth. And that helped to encourage the Poles to stand up to communism. Yes?
Is that the guy that came to America a couple years ago?
Oh, my, no, not a couple years ago. He's been dead for quite a while. Yeah. But he did come to America. Yeah, this was during, like, he was chosen in the 1970s, and then he was the Pope, I want to say all the way up until, like, sometime in the 90s, I believe. Anyway, very dynamic person, and of course he's encouraging Catholics to stand up. And, here we go, I'll give you a couple of pieces of information. And so you will have Catholics and workers joining together to go on strike. Lech Walesa. They are going to go on strike, and what are the Polish communists going to do? They're going to be like, oh no, maybe we should let them do what they want. Yes? When a pope is chosen, it's traditional. They choose their names. John Paul II chose John Paul II because the pope who had been pope just before him chose John Paul as his name based on a whole line of Johns and a whole line of Pauls. He chose John Paul, but he died very quickly. And so John Paul II, his real name was Karol Wojtyła. He's Polish. And so he changed his name to John Paul II as a pope. They just do that. Yeah. Francis, I believe, because he's been the pope he's the current pope. Francis the First. Yeah, he's still the pope. Yeah, he's still alive. And they've got an ex-pope. Usually they die and then that's it. But the previous pope, Benedict, I forget which number, he retired. And so it's very unusual to have a retired pope and a current pope. Anyway, Pope John Paul II.
The election of a Polish pope and his triumphant journey back to Poland.
There's a lot of Poles there.
Gave the Poles a new confidence in their Roman Catholic.
Here's a really bad 70s joke. In the 1970s, how did the Catholic cardinals, what method did they use to pick the next pope? They took a poll. That's good, isn't it?
And in themselves.
We still got a bit of time.
I just fell to my knees.
We're on 1989. Were you here for last time to do that? You are? Okay. So you were on, like, question number 22, I think. It's okay, but you can get the answers from a neighbor. Yeah, that's fine. And then you can watch it as well on YouTube.
And any attempts to improve conditions was ruthlessly put down. The discontent was greatest in the port of Ivanz. In 1980, a year after the Pope's visit, the shipyard went on strike. Enrique Chevenost was a streetcar driver on the line outside the gate.
We knew something was up in the shipyards, so I stopped my number 15 in front of the opera. I blocked the 15s, the 13s, and the 2s. I brought all the traffic in the centre of Gdańsk to a halt.
With the city at a standstill, the strikers gathered in the shipyard and issued 21 demands. Many were a direct challenge to the Communist Party's claim to represent the workers.
What's your main demand? We want trade unions to be independent of the communists, separate from the government. That's what they wanted. They protested and they prayed.
Prayed that the army wouldn't be sent in.
Well, they're going to send the army in to beat those guys up? They had in the past.
People were born anew in the yard. We all came together. I didn't go to confession because I had nothing to confess. That's how people took it. And those masses also meant that we weren't scared.
With strikes spreading all over Poland, a government minister arrived in the shipyard for talks. strikers listened in over loudspeakers. Enrique Chevenost and her fellow negotiators could now confront the party leaders face to face.
Świat partyjny nie ma żadnych przywilejów. Nie ma inaczej dodatków rodzinnych, tak jak całe społeczeństwo.
Look, oh my gosh. She's standing up to him. She's telling him to go take a hike. Number 22. Is she remaining quiet, or is she like accusing them of having their own separate private cafeteria?
Suddenly I felt I'd grown wings.
Yeah, she's speaking truth to power.
I liked what I said, but at last I could say what I wanted.
The party caved in. The
Oh!
workers were allowed to form the first independent,
23.
union in the Soviet Empire.
Yes! Oh my gosh, there he is.
Shipyard
Lech Walesa.
Walesa
He's on your test.
taken on the full might of the communist state and won.
Wszyscy bierzemy odpowiedzialność. Nie ja sam, ale to jest siła, to jest moc i my to zrobimy. Mamy już swoją pracę. Solidarność będzie naszym pismem, które będzie się stało bez żadnych przerw okazywało.
The organization, the labor union, is called Solidarity.
Within weeks, 10 million Poles had joined the new union.
Wow. And this is going on in communist-dominated Poland.
Terrified that
Wow.
solidarity was a dangerous virus that would spread to their own people, other communist governments tried to discredit it.
Ooh.
Subversive movement.
Subversive. 24. What are they sending in? Not drugs. Money and printing material.
Not only was money brought out, but printing presses and large amounts of paper.
You got 24? Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
To us, solidarity meant counter-revolution.
Whatever.
Solidarity called for strikes against socialism in Poland. We believed that to strike against your own state was to strike against yourself.
Soviet workers accused their Polish brothers.
Эти профсоюзные органы в Польше в настоящий момент призывают к борьбе за власть.
They want to restore capitalism. Oh my gosh. Terrible.
The pressure on the Poles was turned up when the Soviets held maneuvers just a few miles from Gdansk.
They always just practice. They've done that previous year. You'll learn more about this when you get into the 11th and 12th grade. The Soviets just practice, right? Are they going to send their troops in, or are they going to force the Polish communists to use their own troops to crack down on Solidarity? Which one do you think it's going to be? Number 25. It's going to be the Polish troops. And when they crack down, is there like, can we just run through the streets and continue protesting? What's going to happen to some of these people who've been identified as folks that are willing to stand up to the communists in Poland? They're going to be beaten up. Take a look. Wait till you get to number 26. I'm sorry, that's not going to be a pleasant answer. Watch the images.
The clear message to the Polish party leader, General Jaruzelski, was that the Red Army would intervene if the Poles failed to put their own house in order. In December 1981, Gdansk Agreement, the general banned Solidarity and
Wow.
declared martial law.
Look at the images here. Here comes the military and the police beating up Solidarity protesters.
The army and police, the unarmed trade union kept up resistance for as long as it could.
Getting beaten up. Uh-oh. Oh. Getting run over by trucks.
Thousands of Solidarity leaders were rounded up and arrested. The police soon came for Enrique Chevenos.
I knew they'd come for me.
26.
I was so afraid. 4 of them burst in and started to kick me around like a ball because I resisted. When one of them saw I was pregnant, it made no difference. I was shouting and they were screaming. They beat me up. They left me bleeding on the floor.
Anita lost her baby and any chance of having children.
That was the price that she paid for standing up to the
The
communists.
Soviet leaders still held ultimate control in their hands, but their grasp was faltering.
Oh, Brezhnev, he's dead. He's dead.
3 general secretaries were buried in
Andropov, dead. Ternyenko is dead. Who's going to be the next leader?
A leader from a new generation took over, and Mikhail Gorbachev seemed to understand the frustrations of the people on the street.
27. Is he willing to talk to the people in the street? Let's get the economy going. Then we'll be stronger. And we'll have apartments. He's like an American politician. Yes is the answer to 27.
He was a leader with a new style, who declared the socialist world could only be transformed with the full participation of the people.
People should play an active part. There you go, number 28. What about movies that are critical of government?
Policy of openness, or glasnost, allowed Soviets to read books and see films that had been censored previously.
29, yes, free speech. Oh my gosh.
Igor Shchegolev had foreseen the collapse of the whole Soviet system in a comedy about a publishing house that had come to a halt.
And then the building begins to collapse. Yeah. Because the system itself was collapsing. We could not go on in that state of paralysis.
They don't have the big special effects budget, but you know, the point is made.
I was very lucky. Gorbachev saw the film and they told me later he liked it very much. He said it caught the tragedy of our situation perfectly. He said we have to do something before the roof falls in.
Like what? Capitalism?
Television viewers were transfixed by programs which told for the first time how people really lived.
Number 30. Oh, is that a good apartment? It's got rot. The pipes freeze. No heating. What, high quality, low quality? Yeah, low quality. And others are even worse off, she says. Wow.
Yevgeny Mikhayev, a Moscow fishmonger, was taken aback by all this frankness.
31.
In the past, we'd always told jokes among ourselves, and we laughed about all the things that were wrong and we didn't like. But we did it among friends, and now suddenly here it all was on TV.
Further Gorbachev reforms began challenging the state's total control over the economy.
We'll pick it up right there. We're going to see that Gorbachev's going to bring in some capitalism. We'll continue this and finish this out next time. All right. Do svidaniya. Goodbye. Goodbye, peoples. Where's my... Oh, here it is. Do, 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 do.